Yes, what you are witnessing with the Doji coin is a coup. It is an auto coup. Democrats won't tell you because they're scared of you questioning the integrity of the government, which is crazy because we already don't have trust in the integrity of the government. However, what we are witnessing is a Sao coup. It is what he wanted to do in 2021 but was unsuccessful. He has been successful this time, and whether it will maintain itself because it took what? It took us over what, 15 years to finish the third, with the mustache man. It wasn't quick. So how long it takes for us to dissolve this will depend on a variety of factors. However, the people who think, oh, we can take care of it after midterms, we can focus on midterms, that's not how fascism, that's not how tyranny works. And I'm sorry to break it to you, it's not gonna be like that. And Diddy Trunk is showing us every single day. So this one is a form of coup, I can say that, in which a political leader, having come to power through legal means, stays in power through illegal means through the actions of themselves and or their supporters. Now in 2021, he triggered his supporters to head to the Capitol after he told them that if they didn't fight like hell, then they were going to lose their country. They went to the Capitol and caused an insurrection. Went into the Capitol, did all of that stuff. But the attempt was to unlawfully extend his presidency without actually winning the election. Now, the problem wasn't necessarily that it wasn't certified until January 7, if that reality was that it was because the Congress people were actually challenging it. But it wasn't that. It was because the people were threatening Congress, which is what prevented it from happening on January 6th, but it instead happened on January 7th. Now, Diddy Trunk had the Insurrection Act that he could have used, that was used in 1994 for the Los Angeles riots, but obviously it wasn't to his benefit, so he didn't do anything for over 13 hours. In his reality, it's questionable whether, in a way, he kind of invoked Amendment 2, because if you read the reports from the perspective of the actual insurrectionists, they saw it as the commander-in-chief giving them an order, so they acted in accordance to that order, right? However, it was unsuccessful. This one was successful. Now, a bunch of branches failed us, the executive, when Joe Biden dropped that case with his 3 letters on the election interference, because the reality is that that would have helped us at least have some legal grounds in regards to disqualifying him from Amendment 14, Section 3. If not before, then after. But now we don't have that. It's in the air still, even though we have the Jack Smith report. Why? Because the jury has to be the appropriate authority. The courts failed us because they position that states cannot actually remedy the disqualification clause when in fact Federalist 9 tells us that they can. However, the rebuttal would be that that's not the Constitution, that's the Federalist Papers, and let's say I agree on that. Why is it that the courts have the power they do when in fact when you look at Article 3 of the judiciary, it's incomplete? So in reality, Congress, when they created the structure, when they create structures for the courts, they use Federalist 78 through 83. So if Federalist 9 and 10 on the insurrection and forbidding that doesn't have authority or weight, then why would Federalist 78 through 83? If you say that it's because a certain one is more important, then that's arbitrary. It should be important for guiding our reality. So if Federalist 9 and 10 doesn't have any force, then neither does Federalist 78 through 83. In that reality, the courts are executing on authority that's actually unconstitutional. So it can be said that they've just been politicized, and given that they have judicial immunity, they basically do what they want, which is contrary if you actually read Federalist 78 through 83. This tells us that the Congress has inputted a lot of their opinion contrary to the actual guardrails and the actual guidance of the Federalist Papers and even the Constitution. Why? Because technically it's not unconstitutional to position that, since Article 3 is incomplete, right? And then we have Congress who failed because the Republicans believe that if there is no decision on the legitimacy of whether Diddy Trunk counts under Amendment 14, Section 3, then he qualifies, which is wrong, because Amendment 14, Section 3 says that Congress can remove the disability by a vote. There has not been a vote, and certification does not count as a vote because it is the popular vote and it is the Electoral College. It is not the Congress vote. Congress just certifies. So they have not decided on whether to remove that disability. So why is it that he's still there? Because a legislative coup, right? So now we have a legislative coup, we have a judicial coup, and we just have a failure of the executive to actually fix this. What does this create? A constitutional crisis. And the fact that Democrats have been so useless in actually challenging this means that it has been much more capable of advancing faster into this, a successful self coup. And actually, you can say it is because he's in a presidency, right? And the Cybertruck body isn't ahead of DD Trunk's secret police. That's probably why former President Joe Biden pardoned his family, right? Too bad he didn't protect us. But it says the leader may dissolve or render powerless the national legislature and unlawfully assume extraordinary powers. That's what's happening because he believes he can just do anything with executive powers, that he doesn't have to go through the appropriate constitutional channels. Because why? His press secretary said was that the Constitution is unconstitutional, and when you position that standard, then you're saying that the Constitution doesn't matter anymore, that you are the Constitution, which is what happened because we said, screw Amendment 14, Section 3, allow him to go in. Other measures may include annulling the nation's Constitution. You see, he said that the Constitution is unconstitutional. He's gonna do that. Suspending civil courts and having the head of government assume territorial powers, which is what his secret police has been doing, right? Going into all these agencies like the National Park Services and getting a USB drive and just getting all your information like social security numbers. Federal 78 by Alexander Hamilton tells us that until the people have by some solemn and authoritative act that is to us Article 5, the Amendment Clause, annulled or changed the established form, it is binding upon themselves collectively as well as individually, and no presumption or even knowledge of their sentiments can warrant their representatives in a departure from it prior to such an act. So why is it that he is just eliminating all these things through executive order, forgetting that there are constitutional channels in order to even push this? Rather, this same Federalist Papers tells us that without constitutional integrity, all the reservations of particular rights or privileges would amount to nothing, which is what's happening, right? Because he's just saying that's unconstitutional, that's unconstitutional, and because we allow him, because the Democrat Party is allowing him without challenging it, it's giving him legitimacy. Now, this tells us that the Constitution is in fact and must be regarded by the judges as a fundamental law. So it is our fundamental law. Now, the rule of law is derived from the United States Constitution. How do we know this? Because Article 6, Supremacy Clause, says that the Constitution is the law of the land, and Section 3 of Article 6 tells us that everyone is bounded to an oath to the Constitution, including the states, including the federal government, and including us. And look here, whenever particular statute contravenes the Constitution, it will be the duty of the judicial tribunals, so the courts, to adhere to the latter and disregard the former. So you adhere to the Constitution and you disregard the statutes. Have they done that? No. You see, in our reality, the court and legislature are much more powerful. However, nor does this conclusion by any means suppose a superiority of the judicial to the legislative power. It only supposes that the power of the people is superior to both, and that where the will of the legislature, so of Congress, declared in its statutes, so laws, stands in opposition to that of the people declared in the Constitution. So the Constitution is above democracy. It's above the will of the people. It's above the governed by the people, because in our reality in the United States, governed by the people means that it is in alignment with our social contract, because our social contract is the people's contract. They ought to regulate their decisions by the fundamental laws rather than by those which are not fundamental. But they already told us that the Constitution is fundamental law, and Article 6 tells us that nothing is above the constitutional supremacy, right? So why did we allow for Trump to subvert that, even if he did win the Democratic result? Why is it that we said, hey, but the peaceful transfer of power is above Article 6 Supremacy Clause? That's what makes me incredibly rage, because we have maximum constitutional law, but they rejected to do this because although it's lawful, it's non-traditional. It's against the status quo. So what does that mean? Both that we're in a constitutional crisis, but also that we are witnessing a cell coup. That's just for your knowledge and for you to understand the historical context in which we are living in. It's not about 4 years. It's not about midterms. This won't be capable of waiting that long. We don't have months. We don't have years. We have weeks until it cannot be undone without significant, yeah.